Thanks for staying with us. So our hot topic, to protest or not to protest, that's the conversation today. As momentum continues to gather ahead of the planned nationwide hashtag End Bad Governance protests, many Nigerians have remained undaunted and promised to hit the streets on August 1st to demonstrate against bad governance, hardship, and hunger. What are your thoughts on this? Many governors, many leaders across this nation have come out in different ways to try to dissuade Nigerians from getting involved in the protest. What are your own thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think Nigerians should stand out? Do you think that we should go ahead with the protest? How do you think government should respond to this? How do we ensure that the protests are not hijacked as expected and speculated by many of our leaders? You can join the conversation and call us on 081-0764-1679, 090-241-63440. You can also tweet to us at TVC Connect, this hashtag YourViewTVC, so we can read your tweets. All right, let's talk about this. It's the hottest news in Nigeria now. Everybody, every speech you go to, everywhere you go to, everybody's talking about, in fact, governors are saying, trying to stop people from protesting. And we remind ourselves, it's our constitutional right to protest. It's part of what is protected as for Nigerians in our constitution. So protesting itself is not illegal. Nobody should dissuade us from protesting. But what are your thoughts? Why do you think this is a bit different from why everybody's stopping us?
Yeah, I was totally surprised at the level of anti-protest messaging that was coming from the government, and why everybody kept saying, don't protest, we are doing over and over again. It was so strong that, because I've not been following global news or African news, so I didn't really understand until I just asked my husband, like, why are they so against it? Because the fear of what happened in Kenya. So for many Nigerians who are not aware of what happened or what's happening, it resolved it a bit in Kenya, is that a simple protest in terms of hard, like, oh, life is hard, this policy of tax has now brought hardship on citizens, got really messy, violent, and deadly. So I guess the Nigerian government and Nigerians are scared that we don't want that to be our reality. We still recollect what happened in the EndSARS protest, and we're looking at what's happening in Kenya. And remember what happened with Arab Spring, where it just starts with one country and then every other person starts complaining about what is going on, and it becomes this blanket thing that is happening. So now I understand a bit about what is happening why the government is so against the protest. But I'm a Nigerian. I understand that my 1,000 naira can no longer buy what it used to buy January this year. I understand the fact that I am also having to deal with the difficulty of buying from last year. If you want to when subsidy was gone, to fill your tank has turned to, you have to be praying and chop belly before you can fill your tank. And so I can understand why Nigerians would want to start a protest. But because of the fear of all the other side effects that can happen, how many shop owners have enough barricades to ensure their goods don't get looted in the midst of this? Okay. So at this point, I am urging on the side of, can we verbalize our protest as opposed to going on the streets where it can become harmed, and taken over, hijacked?
If you put it the way you said it, protest has already happened. Everybody is talking about the protest. If the government themselves, they don't hear this message. This one, the message has already been passed. The truth is, just as you said, we see the hardship across everybody. I know 3 people now that have done various means to Japa. The way they Japa is unexplainable. I hope it's not through this channel, because they just had to leave. People are people are being dehumanized by the standard of living, where you have to beg or you eat the lowest kind of thing. Sitting the other day with my neighbor, I saw somebody just come whisper something in her ear. She goes in. So all the head of fish was what that person came to collect for her kids. And so people must survive. We cannot pretend that we don't know what is happening. And the sad part is that we see videos. I don't know whether they're verifiable, whether they're verified, of food stuff degenerating and spoiling in warehouses. Government-owned or government-sponsored warehouses where constituents and, political leaders in those constituents, or how lawmakers are, people who can reach the people immediately, the chairman, are not doing anything. Rather than let this food spoil, let people eat to their fill. At least they say that from the belly inside, the power inside, that madman take decrease. An hungry madman, he go see him, he go sleep. Let people eat. Let's even know where the problem is first. In the midst of this hardship, there's so much wastage. There's so much wastage. And we don't need an August 1st for government to hear this message. This message has long been passed. Everybody been talking about it. The deaf has talked about it. The blind has talked about it. The seeing can talk. Everybody, we are all talking about it. And the truth is that something has to be done. Reality is the government is doing so much. The people too, are we doing so much? I was talking to a young boy recently. I said, he said, we cannot, we are hungry. I said, can you farm? This is my nephew. And he was like, auntie, I'm a tech person. How can I farm? I said, then we will always pay for the exchange to import the food that you must eat. We will pay the exchange rates now to bring the food from the countries that are willing to farm. Are we willing to do the things to change? So this government, I don't envy them right now. Yeah. They have to take tough decisions. In the midst of all this hardship we want to change, we don't want to do so much. We want government to do all.
Mariam, what are your thoughts on this?
My first thought is, what is the fear? Protest is not riot. Are people planning on going on a riot? So that's the question now. You know, I still have PTSD from NSAS. We know. We went through a personal experience. Yeah. You both more than we, and I still think about it. I still remember how all of us in one voice were against NSAS, and we came out and we wanted this to end. And how it went from, you know, a movement for sanity in our, in our society with demands that young people had put out, to burning houses, killing people, looting, assaulting and harassing human beings. So that's my fear. That's personally for me. But protests, because things are going wrong, I think that it's okay to talk about it. It's our, forget that it's our constitutional right. Things are tough. And it's not about poor people, though. Middle class, rich people. See, poor people, yes, we can say, oh, our food, it's food. We can't get food. Food is expensive. Rich people that are employers of labor who have collected money from debt, to run these businesses that they have employed us. They have collected debt in foreign exchange. They cannot pay. So everybody is affected. So you're right, Nima, when you say that this protest has already started. It has started. And if this protest is really about what we're going through, then it's okay to to protest. But my fear is it a protest we want to do, or are we coming out to riot? Because I don't understand how, when someone says, oh, in my own opinion, I don't think people should come out and protest. And then everybody's, almost screaming and shouting the person down. Like, this is already conversation online. What is it that we're planning, And whether we like it or not, it's still the same us that will suffer it. There are some people that are able to get on a plane and leave. Yeah. They don't leave. Who do you think they will leave? It's me and you that are still suffering this hardship that will be here. So please, let us protest. We all are going through this hardship. The protest is to say to government, this and this and this and this is what we're going through right now. Times are tough. We cannot even feed. Petrol is high every day. Look at the queues, And now, so it's right to protest. But my fear is, what are we planning to do with this protest? So what's the end game?
My worry has always been, because I am one, I was born into protest. My father has been protesting, and Bekor and some Kuti, all the big guys, Femi Falanas, these are protesters that we've seen in the past. Even the president himself used to be a protester. And so protest is not something that we don't know of. But the protests we've seen in the past had a face, had a leader. Bekor and Sokutu called for a protest, Gani Fayemi called for a protest, and we see them at the forefront leading the protest. This protest, the fear is that it is faceless. And when you have a faceless protest, because no matter how you protest, every protest ends with a conversation. Somebody has to be called to the table to negotiate. Okay, these are the demands. This is what we want. How do we meet halfway? Remember when #NSAS started? There was a letter given to Governor Sanwo-Olu. Please take this to President Buhari to tell him this was what. And eventually it turned against him. But the point is that something was given. So there has to be a face. So you can't have a protest and say, okay, it's faceless. Faceless protests can be very, very threatening, because the governor doesn't know who is in charge. Who do we talk to? Who do we negotiate with, number one? Number two, we don't even need Kenya. We've seen how Lagos State will tell you the billions they lost, the buses that were burnt in. High Court was burnt. High Court that has history was burnt. We saw the history happen in this Lagos. We don't need Kenya. We saw enough. We had enough. Yes. Kenya didn't even have a clue. They actually switched them on their parliament. But here, properties.
Individuals.
Properties. Business was lost.
Malls.
So we saw it. So I think that is the fear of government. But for us to also protect people's constitutional rights, it's important for us to know that, let us know who are the organizers, let us know what their demands are, and then let us see how government can then meet us halfway in this protest. I'll come to you, Nima, because I know our guest is already waiting. Mr. Daniel Bwala is a commentator, public affairs commentator, and he'll be joining us on the show. I hear that he's already connected with on Zoom. I tried to get him on tonight for him to join the conversation. Good morning, sir. Are you there? Oh, good. I see you're here.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I know that this conversation concerning the protest is the hottest topic in Nigeria right now, and the ladies have expressed their initial thoughts on it. I'd like to get your own initial thoughts on this protest. You've heard our own views. How do you think this should be carried out in the first place?
Right. Good morning, and thank you for having me. In fact, at the point, I said the ladies in the studios are stealing my thought, because most of what you guys were expressing were actually my initial thought on the matter. Now, like we said, and it bears repeating, protest is constitutionally guaranteed, because the Constitution guarantees right of assembly, peaceful assembly, expression of your thoughts and opinions. So even if the opinion is to express your dissent against the government or the way in which the government is, running the country, you have that right. But why the government is a bit skeptical about this protest, and again continues to plead with the Nigerian people to shield the idea of the protest, is that there are characteristics of a peaceful protest that we see not in this call for the protest. So what are the characteristics of a peaceful protest? Number one, identifiable leadership. Every protest must have a leader, because the aim of the protest is to negotiate. And where there is no leader, then there is nobody to negotiate with. That means you're going into an endless protest, which will give room for people to hijack it for their sinister plan. And this particular one is hydra-headed, because it has different groups that have different objectives. Secondly, every peaceful protest has an identifiable objective or demand. And the demand must be reasonable. The demand must be demands that can be made within the ambits of the law. For example, you cannot go protesting demanding for what the law does not provide, or demanding for what is against the law. We have seen in the various characteristics of the agitation, there are individuals who are making genuine, demands for good governance, demands for the pay rise for workers, demands for solution to hunger and unemployment. But there are others who are also demanding the unconditional release of Nnamdi Kanu. And yet we have a judicial system in Nigeria that is dealing with that. So in other words, there are some demands within the precincts of the various protests that are anti-democratic, because it is not consistent with the law. When you have a protest with different demands like that, you don't know who to sit and negotiate with. You might reach an agreement with one group, and the other group say we are not a party to it. That happened, I think, 4 years ago with the NSAS. Yeah. I remember when Davido suddenly, emerged like a clap of thunder out of a blue sky and went to the force headquarters and thought he was negotiating on behalf of the NSAS protester. While he was doing the conversation, some people disowned him and declared him persona non grata. I remember when Showore was also talking on what they said, we have nothing to do with you. So when there are no identifiable leadership, and you don't have identified objective, then it's difficult to deal with it. And then the last one is every protest has a timeline. You must know when to stop. What killed NSAS was that they said they were going to be on the street for about a week, and then they later said it's going to be endless. You have to be able, when you make a demand, to give government time to meet with the demands. Now, what we are seeing building up in this present protest is is antithetical to what we believe as the basis for protest. They don't want to leave the street. They are asking for what cannot be supported by law, and they are placing a demand for the destruction of the state and its infrastructure. And the outcome of every protest that is peaceful must not result in the loss of life, destruction of property, and undermining of the democracy, which is not what we are saying. So this is the reason why the government is begging and pleading with the Nigerian people to say, look, those of you who have genuine concern, give us time. In fact, let me be honest with you before you come up with your follow-up question. Some of the demands that were raised by the people who are planning to protest, the president has already begun implementing that. They talk about pay rise. The president has agreed with the labor workers. It has been passed to law, the minimum wage. In fact, the president committed further to say he's going to assist the private sector to meet up with those demands. They also asked for government to deal with hunger. The president approved the release of truckloads of food to all the states of the federation. They asked for governance. This one they're saying, end bad governance. The president has single-handedly, under his administration, achieved the local government autonomy, which has now brought financial, resources to the local level where governance can be delivered. Of course, you see the stimulation of economy. So he's already implementing what they're asking for. That's why he's asking, so what else? Why are you going to the street? Identify yourself, come to the table, let's have an understanding, just like the Labour Congress, and then we can make progress as a nation.
Okay, I hear what you say about, having a face, but I think we've gone past that stage where we can actually identify a face to any protest. We are a large number of people. We have a very huge youth population. How do we appoint a face to a protest? This, like I said, this protest has already happened. The hardship is in everybody's house. The rain is falling on everybody's roof. If the people want to express, this hardship, is it not sufficient for them to just carry their placards and do a protest across town rather than have a face negotiating with government that they don't even trust?
So hardship is not a protest. Hardship is a condition. It's an unfortunate condition.
Changed by,
a protest
by
expression.
Policies.
Yes, a protest is expression of the hardship. And it is done in many ways. Individuals have a right wherever they are to protest. We've been doing that every day, actually, when we meet and we talk with individuals. But this protest that they are talking about is not what you say every day in your homes or church or on the street or in the working place. This one is a coordinated expression of dissent to the government with the expectation that demands must be made. It has to be organized. So you asked the right question. How can the leaders be organized? Then my answer to your question would be, who are the people that began the initiation and giving of the date and timelines, raising of the articulation of the demands? They are human beings. They are not bots on Twitter. So those human beings that came up with the idea, came up with the date, drew up the demands, and started the planning of the process. That means there's a coordination of people. Why are they hiding the head of the leadership? I thought that we ought to have learned the lesson from NSAS. NSAS could have been a huge success if people were willing to come out as leaders of those groups and negotiate. Any protest that does not have a leadership that will negotiate with government, it is not a protest. It is a sinister plan to undermine democracy.
So I feel like earlier in the conversation, your first comments highlighted the fact that there are different groups with different demands. So obviously, do you believe that it is possible for these different groups, though, like you gave example of those ones demanding for the release of Nnamdi Kanu, that, okay, some of the protest condition is including that, some is including food, some is including other things. So is it possible to have these different groups who are united by the, like, okay, we have a united enemy or we have a united person that we feel can solve our problem. Can they now come together to have a leader or a group of leaders?
Yeah. It is as simple as ABC. It's part of human nature, the ability to organize. Part of human nature, the ability to negotiate. So why did we say there are different groups? Because we have identified different articulation and different demands, right? So let's say if it is social media that has been the platform for the coordination of this planned protest, what they ought to have done is any group that is coming out with the 10-point demand, we would have seen on social media or mainstream media, those ones that are asking for either 5-point or asking for Nnamdi Kanu, you get a contact, connect with them and say, okay, can we have a meeting? Come with your demands, we come with our demands, get all of the people who have identified who have demands, coordinated demand, let us have a meeting so we can agree on them, where it's likely that point A is reflected in all of our demands. We put it as one. Point B, then those ones that are not in all of those that are peculiar to specific group, we'll bring them together and say, let's dialogue. Are they achievable? Do we go with it? Do we drop it? Or do we go with this one first? If the government meets with this demand, they will come up with the second. Like the way Labour said, okay, let's go with 70,000, but it's renewable. We'll come back another day. That is part of human, effort, in arriving at a good negotiation. So if they had coordinated themselves, for the past 2 weeks, the federal government has been calling on them. 2 weeks. If you truly intend to end bad governance, you truly intend to bring about good governance, you truly intend to end some of the vices that you talked about in your demand. I believe that you will even both hands, singing, you will come identify yourself so you can have a sit down with government. Labour sat with government and they achieved something. So when you believe that you cannot achieve anything meeting with the government, you rather prefer to stay on the street. The government is also not saying don't stay on the street. The government is also saying that we have a duty and a right to make sure that Nigeria runs, which includes protection of the lives and the property of citizens who are not going to be involved in the protest, to be sure that they are not looted, to be sure that there is no destruction of life and property, to be sure that the state functions consistent with national security. That's all that the government is saying.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so we live in a changing world. Our world is evolving, and a lot of things happen on social media right now. So I understand that a protest should have leadership, is the way it has always worked. But with the, the introduction of social media, a lot of people have found a way to use it to protect themselves. So we have heard of protests before where leaders were scapegoated. So they were singled out and almost punished for even being the leader of a movement. So you will find that people now are using social media in a way to protect themselves. So I'm thinking that government also needs to find new and evolving methods for conflict resolution. So it doesn't matter if there is a known physical leader, or is it more important that somehow the voices together are saying one thing? Most of the demands is what we've heard many people say over and over again. And what, in this new changing world, in what way can government now resolve these issues in such a way that, it gives people peace? Not everybody wants to come out and throw, and destroy everything, but also we want to know that government is hearing us without anybody being scapegoated.
Right. So you raised 2 points, and they are valid points. Number one, the necessity of being identified in order to avoid being made a scapegoat, right? There is, first of all, the response to the question will be that for anybody who ever imagines that he's going to be a leader of a movement, you know that what comes with the territory is the possibility of being arrested or being detained, but that you make up your mind, if this is what it costs for me to be able to bring about this, I will. Anybody who wants to lead a protest and is not prepared to be locked up for what he believes in is a coward. That's one. But the second part is that the government will not even do it. Nigerian Labour Congress, are they not also an interest group? Have they not said so many? Have they not even gone on strike that ground the system? Was any of the leadership arrested? In fact, when you identify a leader, that is when you put the government on their toes. This is where you're able to twist the government, because the government will have no reason to clamp on anybody, because there are identified leaders with identified objectives that are attainable and they are consistent with the law. The non-identification of leadership gives room for undemocratic elements and political opposition to use it in order to undermine the state and force a regime change. We have seen it all over the world. That's point number one. But point number two, with what you said about governors. You see, if there were identified leaders, they would have appreciated that probably 40 to 50% of what they have already begun protesting, the president is already on course delivering on those. Because the Nigerian workers now have a good deal for the start in terms of their minimum wage. Then the local government autonomy is bringing governance to the local level. It means it deals with primary health care, it deals with poverty, deals with insecurity at the local level, because there are resources now to be able to beef up local security and policing. Even our traditional leaders will become instruments of intelligence for the government and not for the undemocratic element. And then, of course, the third one, you have seen that the president released truckloads of food. And then the bigger conversation will be, it seems the federal government is releasing funds, the federal government is engaging. Then let us have a look at our state. Are they really re-delivering what they're receiving from the government? So this is what an organized group will be able to say, okay, we've gone 2 past this one and we'll go to the third one. But when you don't identify yourself, even when all of your needs are met, you will still not be satisfied. I remember, permit me, Maury, I remember with NSAS, when they tabled all of the demands and sent Governor Shangolu, he went to Abuja, delivered it to the then President Buhari, who agreed he was going to meet all of those demands. Guess what? The people on the street said that they are not even interested in that they will stay for as long as it takes until all of the demands are made. Government is not a magic company. There are certain demands that will take time. There are certain demands that will take consultation. There are certain demands that will take engagement. There are certain demands that will call for restructuring And all of this will call for time. If you want overnight change, then you actually do not mean to protest. Tell us what exactly you intend to do.
Okay, let me take this call. Vivian's been holding from Port Harcourt. Good morning, you're live.
Yes, my name is Vivian. I'm calling from Port Harcourt.
Yes.
What I'm saying in effect is Nigerians are hungry. We need to demonstrate. Mr. Tinubu is not hearing us. He doesn't understand what is happening. My children can't eat yam. I bought a piece of yam that is not as big as my hand for 8,000 naira. It's not even enough. Coastal rubber of Gary is 4,005. Coastal rubber of beans is 9,000. People are hungry. We don't need any face. We did it during Buhari government. We did it. We demonstrated during Babangida. We didn't have a face. Students, we said Babangida was bold. And he came out and listened to us. Abata kept us in strike. We did the same thing. Tinubu protested. We don't need any face. We don't need any hijacker. We don't need anybody to come and speak to us. Our stomach is speaking. What we are asking is stomach infrastructure. We are not interested in their building their roads. Whatever they are building, I don't care. We are hungry. And I cannot stand and allow my children to die in my face. This is stomach revolution. Yeah. If that man does not do anything, he's going to have revolution. There is no pretense anymore. Morayo, you are here. You go to the market. They can corrupt the men, like the man who just spoke now. He's Tinubu's man, but they can't corrupt you, Morayo.
Vivian, let me stay with you for a second. I like that we're engaging this conversation. So let's imagine all of us go to the streets and protest. Now, some unscrupulous elements start burning down private properties, as they did at #EndSARS. Some start burning down the buses, as we did last time. Do you think that is what that is? Okay, do you understand the reason why why the leaders are saying we should kind of hold off on this protest?
Can I give you an answer?
Yes.
Can I give you an answer to your question? Now, this is a planned protest. And in plan, see, this is, can I answer you that question?
Please.
This is a planned protest.
Okay.
As a planned protest, we have the police, we have the military, we have all the paramilitary, whatever.
Okay.
They can monitor this protest.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, hello, Vivian. Oh, yikes. Okay, so she's saying that the state should protect the protest. No, that's fine. I mean, as I said, protesting is a constitutional right. But there was a question that I was actually going to ask Mr. Bwala. I'm not sure if it's a question because I was invited to a church yesterday for Sunday service, and it's a youth church. I mean, maybe I'm one of those ignorant Nigerians that I have never really attended that kind of space. Everybody, including the pastors, probably 35 and below. So I felt like a grandma entering that church. and I came in, first of all, thankfully nobody recognized me. I was just like a regular person. And I saw the energy. And I could almost understand the disconnect between our leaders. Because even me, Morayo, I entered and I'm thinking, where am I? Which planet am I in? I felt secluded. Like, this is not my world. Now imagine these guys out on the streets. All these things that the president is doing, they don't understand it. Why? There's a wall. They're not getting it. So it's either the government is not communicating. Okay, you've agreed with Labour, 70,000. Yes, we hear it, but how does it affect what we are buying on the street? It doesn't affect them. So there's still something. There's a wall that we need to break. How?
They're not
we then get through.
They're not in civil service, so the 70,000 does not affect them in any way. Like,
so they are the ones that are going on the streets. They are young people. They're the ones that are hearing these messages, and they will say they're coming to the streets. So the point is that, my question to Mr. Bwala is that the protests we've seen in the past, as Mariam has said earlier, yes, there are ways where you talk to leaders, they have a conversation. But this modern youth, they are not interested. They just want to go on the streets to express themselves. So what's the creative way that government can use to communicate? Because obviously having a leadership is not going to work. It's not the factor that is required right now. So I don't know if I'm getting my question across to you properly, Mr. Bwala.
Right. Yeah, I get your point about communication, and I think that maybe there is a communication gap, but the government is making all the effort to communicate that. Let me give a scenario to the caller. I can feel his passion. I can feel his concern. In fact, it affects all of us, right? But I'm doing PhD here. I struggle the same. But let me give him a scenario. The scenario is that he comes out because he can no longer take it. His stomach is speaking. And I'm sure when he comes out to the street, the way he sounded, he doesn't look like somebody that will be involved in violence. So he will be peaceful. But there are others who may not have the patience that he has to be able to even come and call in and express his. They just are looking for opportunity. He probably has a relation, his pastor or any member of his community who probably has a shop on the street or has a shop in a shopping mall or has a house that happens to be on the street side. We're a community, right? So what if he goes with this anger to the street and then it results in the burning of the shop of his brother or relation or somebody he knows who is also struggling to sell and has been looking for customers, and now the shop is burnt? What of the infrastructure of government that is necessary in dealing with the problem? So let's say Ministry of Agriculture or whatever. What of the destruction of assets of government? What about the death of people that come out to protest arising? Because the thing is, once a protest turned violent, the government has a duty by law to enforce the law and ensure that there is peace. And in the course of doing that, there are casualties, either on the side of the violent protesters or on the side of government. This is the scenario you have to look at. Yes, we're angry. Yes, we're angry. What if we go and this happens? Then is it worth the protest? The second part is, yes, the issue about hunger is genuine. Everybody can feel it. And I like the point you said, that increase of money to the workers does not result in increase or reduction of prices in the market or affecting those who are not in government. That's why there are these policies of releasing the truckloads of food, subsidized food. In fact, the president even said, I don't mind importing food from abroad just to make it available to the Nigerian people. There are other parts of economic reform that may not directly hit them now, but probably in the coming weeks and months, we are going to see the amelioration of the hardship. The truth of the matter, let us not go round and round. The truth of the matter, Nigeria is undergoing a reform. Reform is not convenient. Reform is not helpful. We have been living a fake national life in the past, of borrowing and spending where it is not necessary, of showing up of the naira, with dollars, or showing up of the dollars with the naira, of all kinds of bad policies that brought us to where we are. And when President Tinubu came, he saw it. Unfortunately, a leader must act. Unfortunately, the leader must take the bullet. So he had to take the bull by the horn. So your point is, if this communication is consistent, this communication is appealing, probably anybody who is going through hardship, we all go to church and they tell us that no matter what you're going through, by God's grace, we pray it will work. Why are you not angry with your pastor and say it must happen tomorrow morning? You have faith with the pastor that the word he has spoken, or with the imam that what he has encouraged you will come very soon. That same faith you have to the religious leaders. Have it with your government.
All right, let me take this call.
I can't trust the government. The religious leaders, so have they not been failing?
Let me take this call from Alhaji Tubaris in Holding. Good morning, Alhaji.
Very much. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
And let me first of all appreciate your guest. He has broken it down. Again, let me appreciate your guest. You see, let's talk about the reality. Protest is a means of communication. It's a means of expression. But what we are saying is, what has happened to us in the past, we don't want it to happen to, we don't want it to happen to us now. What the government is saying, is trying to take up the masses, the innocent masses that are affected in the past. I bet you, look at the period of Handmark. People that was, their property was looted, people that have lost their life, police people were, we heard of a lot of police people that were killed. Are they not Nigeria? All on the ground of protest. This is what the government is saying, that they need to identify, like your guest said, let the leader come out and express and show themselves so that they will now know who is responsible for this issue. So that is the issue. Look at what the governor of Abia said yesterday. He said the fight governance has been ongoing. It is not today. Our refinery has been comatose, for 2 decades now. Is it 1 year ago that our refinery is not working? So these are what we are saying. There are some issues that can be solved immediately. There are some issues that can be elongated. So what the government is saying is that for the protection of the citizen and property, and that is why they say people should come out. So that is the bottom line. People should not misunderstand issue. We all understand that protest is a means of communication, of an expression. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to talk to our guest. I want our guests to address the issue of, the president's effort to ease things. We see the 5 months removal of duties on importation of certain items, the distribution of foodstuff across certain local government. I don't live in the Ikeja. I live in the interior of Lagos. If foodstuffs are being distributed, I would have said it on the show. How come we have 5 different ladies here who has not experienced the foodstuff going around? Who are the people in charge of it? How do you verify that the food is getting to the people so that all this conversation will be limited as much as possible? Now, a young person who you're trying to convince at home will assume you received something. That's why you're convincing them. But if they have actually received something dignifying, you know, as the president's intention was to reach out to his people, nobody needs to tell the person, don't join a protest. This is, you know, something strange. But there are certain people within government who are supposed to ensure that this thing gets around, who are not doing what they should do. Exactly. And nobody is getting what they should get. And I'm calling out each chairman, local government chairman to tell people what exactly they're giving out to their people.
So let me quickly respond to your point. And that is we're bringing the ball home to the goalpost. This is where people have complained that some of the appointees of the president, and I'm sorry, it is a sad thing, but I have to say it. Sometimes we have to tell ourselves the truth. Some of the appointees, if they are effectively discharging the duties as required, they would have, conveniently communicate the wisdom and the objective of the president to the Nigerian people. Because I have seen practically president bringing out of his belly everything that needs to be brought out for the good of Nigeria. I'll give you a good example. When they had the agreement with the governor for increase of allocation, remember the governors came back and asked for more. He gave them the money. They asked for food. He sent them the food. And in all of the meetings, if you have noticed, the president continues to say, look, the people at the local level, you have to take care of them. So I give you an example, since we are talking about food. Let's say the Minister of Agriculture. It is a duty of the Minister of Agriculture not just to dump the food, say, in one state and then go back. Your ministry must be able to have a coordinating, monitoring and evaluation group where everything that is sent to any part of Nigeria and Lagos must be brought out to the public for the public to know. So thing has gone to so place. And then there are people to monitor the implementation of that. It is not just to dump it. So the president has said, release food from the strategic reserve. Nigerians were not given a proper communication, whether they later we started hearing there was actually no food in the strategic reserve. Lately, it's okay, release the truckload. And that's where it ends. So the minister's duty is to communicate to the people. Now, there's another part. When the lady who was heading humanitarian was minister, she was all over the place where there are humanitarian situations. You will see her. The media will cover. You will see her in helmet. You will see her in boots. You will see her in the water places. This is what is expected of an appointee of the government. Now, if that lady had been in the place where she is, she would have been all over Nigeria. I'm not saying that to say whether she has been exonerated or not exonerated, but I'm giving you an example of somebody that is on duty. Take, for example, the Minister of Aviation. I have my differences with him, but he's hardworking. You could see him on every issue at the airport involving the people, extortion of people. He's every day engaging. Assuming this thing affects all other ministries, that means that communication you're talking about would have been made available to the Nigerian people, whether educated or not, whether in the rural areas or in the open places. And they will be able to assess and they say, okay, we are happy in this area. We need improvement in this area. But when people are not maximally functioning, the finger comes to the president because he appoints them. But in actual fact, these people were entrusted with responsibility and they are failing. The good news for Nigeria is that without the prompting of anybody or the protesters, the president himself said, my style of governance is there will be assessment and I will sack people who are not performing. All of this process has taken place. The report has been submitted. Any moment, the president will take the decision necessary to regroup and then move forward. Nigeria needs to have a little more patience and then have faith in our government.
Let me take this call. Bolanle, thanks for calling. You're live. Good morning, Bolanle.
Good morning, Morayo.
Yes.
Please, let government do the right thing. Because people have been suffering. The hardship is too much. Let that money they want to send to the people account is better. But the one the government gave to people, the people did not see anything. People are suffering. Hardship is too much. So let government give them the money into their account so that everybody will be okay. Because the hardship is too much. People cannot bear it. So let government give them the money, individual accounts. All the ones they send is.
Okay, I think, yeah, go ahead, sir. She was saying that they should get the cash.
What she said is very valid. Remember in the US, when the COVID broke out, they introduced, President Biden introduced COVID relief funds. The COVID relief funds go directly to the to the American people, American citizens, right? If you're living in America, you are documented citizen or resident in America, you get the COVID relief fund directly to your account, ascertainable, and it can reach you. Now, but when you pass, assuming this food thing is something that can be sent through account, people will get it. But you know the middleman, the third party, the manipulation. Imagine you are sending food to governor, it is rebranded for election of 2027. It is quite sad. So what she's saying with respect to the relief fund for money sending to the accounts will be powerful, except that there are people in rural areas who do not have bank accounts. You also have to find ways of communicating this money to them. There are people who do not have bank accounts. So, but that is an effective approach. In fact, I would highly recommend that approach much more than passing whatever it is through a third party, and then before you know there is stealing or manipulation of that.
So, Mr. David Bwala, the challenge is we've had 2 women callers who are for the protest. They are not. They don't sound like, oh, we are on TikTok or Instagram based. They are just people that heard about the protest and feel, based on the hardship they are facing, nobody should stop them from being able to protest, and they are of the opinion that they will not destroy any property. And many Nigerians share that. So I'm worried that this fear of destruction of property will be disenfranchising other innocent Nigerians who feel, I just want my voice to be heard, from being able to express themselves. Do you, by any chance, feel there are ways we can maybe ensure that we curtail the path of the protesters or limit where they have access to and allow them express themselves, protect them, and ensure that their ability to express themselves does not hurt other Nigerian businesses?
No doubt. If you look at the case in Kenya, it didn't start with violence. They were coordinated. They said they were going to do whatever, but they stayed beyond the time, and they could not see the realities of what can and cannot be within the short time that they can get from the Kenyan government. They allowed emotions to get the better part of them. The result is that Kenya is 50 years backwards now, as I'm telling you. As individuals, they are suffering, and as a country, they are. Now, coming to Nigeria, we've had a similar situation in NSAS. NSAS appears to be a century organized program. They were so organized, they were music, they were being supplied food, they were playing, and then suddenly when the government said, I will meet your objective, and they said, we won't leave the street, you have to know when the music stops. As soon as they say we won't leave the street, the next thing we start seeing is that elements who wanted to subvert the process now started looting from among them. I don't think that the elements were imported from the other side, from among them, because one thing about human frustration is that when you cannot get assurances within a specified period of time, there is a part of human being that is like madness. It tells you to do whatever there is a prompting to do. And then you have elements who already our society has. Those who are thugs, those who are thieves, kidnappers, armed robbers, and the rest. They cherish this opportunity because this is the only time they can do it and get people clapping for them. Then they can do it and get arrested by the law enforcement. So that is, and government runs with intelligence. The difference between that market woman and the government is that government has intelligence she does not have. She does not know probably from her neighborhood somebody is planning to steal her things. But the government, based on the infrastructure they have, listening to what has been going on, can tell who are behind. The politicians that are behind it, genuine agitation by Nigerians, but hijacked by undemocratic elements. It has to be made clear. Genuine intention, but hijacked by individuals. In order to separate the genuineness of that demand and the hijackers, is that those who have the demand should be able to identify leaders, meet with the government, agree on a point, give a timeline, tell your people, let's give government 2 weeks or 3 weeks based on our agreement. If they don't do it, we'll come to the street. That is the way to go.
Let me take Usman from Abuja. Thanks for calling, Usman. Good morning, sir.
It's a wonderful program and a wonderful topic has been lingering in the country for more than how many days now. It is quite nice that Nigerians are trying to realize their rights. But in as long as you are thinking about your rights, you equally consider the government. This is the first time we are getting a president that is very decisive. This is the first time we are seeing a president that is not thinking about his second time. He's thinking about how to fix Nigeria. But what is killing Nigeria now is that the president, he has gotten his arm. We are all supporting him. But you cannot be a father. You said you are eating okra soup in your house. You give okra soup to everybody to eat. And you are now at the same time thinking about you have to go and buy chicken. It should look very, you are talking strange. Nigerians are admiring the president we have, but all of a sudden they now hear that, Mr. President, you have to buy helicopter, you have to buy planes, you have to buy that. Meaning if you say you don't have money, why are you going into that? You can channel this money for people to have something to eat. You can have price control. You can go into the root of this problem. There are people that are frustrating the man. We appreciate him. He's very decisive. He's trying to bring Nigeria to a right channel where the youth should have their own, but he should lead by example.
Okay.
That is my opinion.
Thank you very much, Engineer Usman. Go ahead.
Yeah. Mr. Bwala, earlier on, you highlighted the inefficiencies or ineffectiveness of some government appointees, and, that's definitely a valid reason for some of the issues that we're facing. But also, how about elected Nigerians? We have governors. What role do they play? Because many times, I feel that we're so quick to run to the presidency or the federal government for our issues. Meanwhile, we have state governors, and thankfully now with the financial autonomy, we can be able to point to local government chairpersons. How would you say governors have been doing in this 1 year, within this 1 year administration? Is this something we're proud of, or do we want to see them do better?
Like I said, I was one of the, if not the leading person, right from the days of President Bwala to talk about the need for us to look at governors. And I said it over and over, and it bears repeating that governors determine everything in Nigeria. Governors determine even the people the president work with. I said it. The governor determines who goes to the National Assembly as a House of Rep or Senator. He determines who becomes the president's minister by his nomination. The same thing with the DG, the same thing with the ambassadors, even the judges at the federal level, the governors influence that. There is no part of our human existence under our democratic framework that the governors are not playing a pivotal role. The only part where the government are not showing responsibility is their home state. And we build our conversation around this narrative as if we're running a unitary government. So what happened in my village, the president is responsible. And the governor wants you to believe that, but he doesn't want anybody to talk about the monies coming to him. Look at even the autonomy of local government and the state. I mean, the financial autonomy of local government, the way in which the governors were resisting. When it comes to resources coming, they will teach you through federalism. When it comes to administering the resources for the good of the people, they say the president is interfering on local government matters. So the governors are the problem, and I've been saying that. Now look at increased allocation. Increased allocation by 75%, over 100% to states. Do you know that 90% of the states of the Federation, they have not actually moved an inch from when they were receiving the old allocation to the increased allocation in delivering governance to their people? And the allocation is just one part. They have internally generated revenue, they have domestic loan they collect, and they have foreign loan, as well as grants that they receive. So what are these governors up to doing? The reason why they do that successfully is because even the media houses in Nigeria, and I make bold to say, hardly stay on a conversation around responsibility of governors, because majority of their clientele and customers are the state government that patronize the media houses. So if we talk about governors today, tomorrow, everybody keeps quiet until another day. But president. My wife insulted me. President Tinubu is responsible. In my village, they say I'm a madman. President Tinubu is responsible. But when President Tinubu says financial autonomy needs to be in the local government, the government will emerge like a clap of thunder out of the blue sky and talk about true federalism.
Let me take this call from Kayode, calling from Shagamu. Thanks for calling. Good morning, Kayode.
Hello?
Good morning, you're live. Go ahead, please. Hello, Kayode.
Hello.
You're live. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, ladies.
Morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I quite agree with most of what the caller has been saying this morning, that is calling. Yeah. Well, about that, that's under
I can't hear Kayode.
Hello?
Hello, Kayode, are you there? All right, so let me just ask you this final question because we wrap up. Because many have called, NLC and a few other government parastatals have asked that the protesters should leave Lagos State out of their protests because if we look at the other sectors, they believe that Lagos is working, in many ways, that protests should probably concentrate more in either in Abuja, where there is a state of power, and other states where they are owing civil servant salaries for months, states where they are still having issues with general development. But Lagos State has lost quite a bit of money at the last #EndSARS, and it will only be respectful for protesters to understand that Lagos State is still somewhat trying to revive from that last episode of the protest, and that for far and wide somewhat, Lagos State is working. So they are advising that protesters should consider leaving Lagos State out of it. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, apart from Lagos, there are one or two other states that if you go there, they are meeting up with the minimum wage. They are doing infrastructure. Like, take, for example, Lagos. Lagos competes with some countries in Africa, not just states. In terms of minimum wages being paid, you are seeing investment in healthcare, transportation is ultra-modern. Then you are seeing the areas in which they are bringing this governance to the rural areas in Lagos. If you compare Lagos of today and then maybe many years ago, if you compare Lagos of today with what they are doing, you will know that Lagos is actively involved or probably leading. But Lagos has the highest concentration of those who want to protest. That should be able to send a message. They are targeting infrastructure of state to destroy. After EndSARS, you saw what happened to Lagos in terms of the destruction of government infrastructure, yet Lagos is working as comparable to other states of the Federation. And Lagos is just an example. There are other states of the Federation where you see efforts by the governors. So if you are actually doing a protest for the purposes of entrenching good governance that you talk about, good governance starts at a local level under the framework of federalism. You are supposed to launch your protest in state first before you come to the federal government. In other words, now that you have increased allocation as a state, now that you have additional funds as a state, we want to know what you're doing. Because you see, at the federal level, the National Assembly can checkmate the president, the judicial branch can checkmate the president. At the state, is it the same? Yeah, but the House of Assembly of the state are mere appendage. The judiciary at the state, they are being oppressed by the sitting government. So there is actually no governor. The end bad governance to start in state because it is a state that there is no governance. Okay. But this is not about end bad governance in the races of the world for those who are trying to subvert democracy. Okay. Their target is President Tinubu. We have to wrap up with you. Not give him time to settle and make him unpopular.
We have to wrap up with you, but I can't let you go without asking the relationship between you and Senator Aliun Dume, who's your principal.
Well, Senator, he's not my principal. He happens to be a senator from my district. And we've been very good. We are good friends until when I met with the president. And then jealousy kicked in. And then he started, murmuring here and there. I continued to meet with the president. And by the time I met with the president in Saudi Arabia, he felt he can't hold it further. So he started jumping from one media house or the other, denigrating the president, saying the president is in a cage, he's controlled by people, all kinds of sinister things. So I now said, this is a senator representing my district. I need to call out that hypocrisy. I did an article calling it out. He now got angry, went to my state, tried to mobilize people in my local government to do protests against me. He now spoke whatever he spoke 2 days ago, insulting me that I am the failed lawyer, I am a dog, and the rest. So yesterday, I replied in a very concise article that I think should even be published and be given to everybody at primary school and secondary school to know the politicians they must avoid.
All right. Thank you very much. That's all we can take. Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel Bwala, for joining us this morning. That's all we can take on today's show. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.